10 returns that Vince McMahon needs to avoid. Number 10. Rosa Mendes. Recently, Rosa Mendes has stated that she is interested in making a return to WWE following her time away due to giving birth, but this is a decision that Vince McMahon desperately needs to avoid making. WWE has been pushing the women's division in recent years, with the focus being on the in-ring quality, with the likes of Charlotte Flair and Becky Lynch changing the game for the entire division, which is exactly why Rosa should not be returning to the company. Bringing back Rosa would be like taking 2 steps forwards and 1 back, as in-ring quality was never something that she excelled in during her own run, which means bringing her back wouldn't make any sense. A simple run-in during the next Women's Royal Rumble is about as far as it needs to go. Number 9. Cryme Tyme. In the tag team world, Cryme Tyme once had huge potential to become a big deal in WWE, hugely popular and with good chemistry both in the ring and on the microphone. It seemed like they were destined for a lot of success. Sadly, the company decided to break them up and stick them in a meaningless feud together, which took all of the heat from both men. While they have continued working, the chances are that the majority of fans no longer remember them, which is why Vince needs to avoid re-signing the pair. When NXT are churning out quality tag teams such as Authors of Pain who aren't getting any screen time, bringing back an older team is something that WWE doesn't need to do right now. Number 8. Goldberg. You might think that bringing back the WWE Hall of Famer for one more run would make sense, and it certainly would. After all, his last spell with the company was a big hit, as his feud with Brock Lesnar was a lot of fun. However, the whole storyline of his run was that he had just one more ass kicking left, and that he wanted to do it so his son could see him as a champion, and he achieved all of those goals, meaning if WWE brought him back, it would take away from that story. On top of that, WWE has so much talent on the current main roster as well as NXT that there really isn't a need for a part-timer, and if WWE does want a pastime talent, it makes sense to use someone who has more in-ring talent such as Kurt Angle or The Rock at this point. Number 7. Melina. Melina is someone who hasn't really been mentioned by WWE in regards to Evolution, which is a shame because she really was one of the most talented female wrestlers of her generation, despite the fact the women were not a focal point. In the ring, she had plenty of quality and would have worked brilliantly in the current era, which means that a lot of fans would likely want her to see her mix it up with the likes of Bayley and Alexa Bliss, but her backstage reputation is likely going to stop her from ever being brought back. Melina was known for having a poor reputation backstage, often causing problems within the locker room, which, considering the environment that is currently in the women's division of them getting along, WWE won't want to take that risk. Number 6. Enzo Amore. Given that the former Cruiserweight champion has only just left the company, this isn't likely going to happen anytime soon, but there certainly could be an interest from Vince McMahon after Enzo was proved not guilty to the charges that led to his release. There's no doubt that while he wasn't one of the most talented in-ring workers, he was certainly one of the best on the microphone and added a lot to 205 Live, which would attract Vince McMahon to bring him back. However, even though Enzo was cleared of his charges, many fans wouldn't find him coming back as a positive thing, and with Triple H now in charge of 205 Live, with the focus being on the in-ring product, there isn't a spot for him. Number 5. Big Cass. Speaking of Enzo Amore, another name that was surprisingly let go was Big Cass, his former tag team partner. Cass was set for a big push as a single superstar, but was punished for his behavior backstage. However, due to his look and size, there's no doubt that Vince McMahon is still interested in him, especially if he makes a big impact on the independent scene. However, WWE really doesn't need to have Big Cass on the books, and signing him is something that the company should avoid. WWE has plenty of big men already working for them, a lot of which can draw a better reaction with the likes of Braun Strowman, not to mention the huge names waiting in the wings of NXT such as Matt Riddle. Number 4. RVD. Rob Van Dam is undoubtedly one of the all-time greats and is no doubt one day going to find himself in the WWE Hall of Fame, but WWE has already given him his return run and he has already had a Royal Rumble return moment, meaning there isn't much for him to do. While RVD can certainly still go inside the ring, he isn't at the same level he once was and is unwilling to work the full-time schedule that WWE would want from him, which will likely put the company off. RVD has also previously mentioned that he's unable to work with the company because of an injury he suffered in the ring, which would stop him from passing a medical with the company, meaning that even if Vince wanted him back, it might not happen. Number 3. Alberto Del Rio. Alberto Del Rio has already had 2 runs with WWE, both of which ended in controversial fashion, which is one of the main reasons that the company needs to avoid bringing the former World Heavyweight Champion back, because Del Rio has been so exposed in the world of WWE, and the vast majority of his last run was spent in the lower mid-card. Nobody is going to take him seriously as a main event talent once again, nor would people be excited to see him back. There is no real need to see Del Rio return, and while he is a talented worker, WWE is trying to promote new faces on the main roster to stop the need for older wrestlers such as Del Rio needing to come back. Number 2. CM Punk. CM Punk is somebody that seemingly everyone wants to make a return to the company, and the likelihood is that Vince McMahon himself would like to see that happen, as there's no doubt that Punk would create some huge revenue for him. However, while it does seem like a great idea, the problem is that CM Punk no longer loves wrestling the way that he did during his first spell with the company, meaning that he simply doesn't want to be involved no matter how much money is thrown at him. It is now time to push and promote new talents, with fans just about forgetting about Punk and no longer chanting his name. WWE needs to now look at the likes of Seth Rollins, and if they do want to spend big cash, that should be going to newer names such as Kenny Omega. Number 1. Ryback. Whether Vince McMahon would ever even want to allow Ryback back into the company remains to be seen, but it is a decision he should avoid making, as there's no real benefit to having the big guy back in the company. Ever since parting ways with WWE, all Ryback has done is badmouth the company, especially Triple H, the man who's eventually going to take charge of the place. On top of that, he hasn't exactly been a big hit on the independent circuit either. Should he return, he would only manage to slot into the mid-card, and WWE already has incredibly talented wrestlers such as Bobby Roode in those spots, meaning there's nothing there for Ryback to do.